Welcome to the Tuesday edition of Juan's World. I had a bit of a hiatus there, which was caused by the fact that my Christmas, New Year's, 12 days of Christmas season got a little carried away in some ways, and got a little worn out by it all. So you can see now my candles are out, although we'll light them tonight. It's 12th night today. It's January 5th. That's the 12th day of Christmas, and tomorrow is Epiphany. And on Epiphany I will take everything down. I was going to make marzipan and royal icing for my 12th cake today, but I have 3/4 of a Christmas pudding left, about 10 mince pies. I have so much food. My freezer is full, my refrigerator is full. I'm not going to be able to do it. And I also didn't have the time on New Year's Day to post my New Year's Day recipes. So I'm going to do them today. 2 recipes, pot licker soup and hoppin John. For many years I have indulged in cooking from the United States southern area, which includes Kentucky, where my wife came from, and North Carolina, where I spent many years at the University of North Carolina and also doing field work in the Tidewater region. And I've usually made a variety of things, hush puppies, cornbread, hoppin John, pot licker soup. They're all very common favorites in North Carolina. And once I left the United States, it got harder and harder to get the right ingredients. But I can always pretty much count on hoppin John, which is just a version of rice and beans, which is found everywhere in the North America and South, well, the Americas in general. And so I'm going to do hoppin John again, and I'm also going to do pot licker soup. Now, pot licker soup really needs collards. I can't get collards, not remotely, but I can get something of the sort. And so I'm going to do hoppin John and pot licker soup. And both of them require fat back, which I also can't get, but I can get pork belly. And so I'm going to start by trying out the pork belly in a skillet, and let's get going. Now, in case you're not familiar with the terminology, trying out in cooking parlance means to render the fat. And that's what I'm doing here with the pork belly. It's very fatty, as you can see. And normally I would grill it in the Korean fashion, or there are a lot of things I can do with it, but now I'm just slowly heating it on a skillet to get the fat to render out. And then I'm going to split it into 2 for the 2 different dishes, and I'm going to use it in 2 different ways. Alright, so at this point, after about 20-25 minutes on a very slow burner, I've got the pork belly reduced, tried out. As you can see, the fat in the pan, and the pork itself is browned. And I'm going to split it up in 2 places. One, it's going to go into the cooking of the black-eyed peas for the hoppin John, and the other into the pot licker soup. And this is the start of the pot licker soup. Now, licker in this context is a homophone, likker meaning somebody who licks, and liquor meaning, you know, whiskey, brandy, what have you. And pot liquor is the water that collards and fatback are boiled in for hours and hours and hours and hours. And I don't have any because I'm not making collards. I don't even have collards. So I'm doing the best I can by putting the tried out pork belly into a pot with a little bit of mild pork stock, and I'm just going to let that simmer for a while. Meanwhile, over here I've got the rest of the tried out pork belly along with some chopped up leeks, could be onions if you wanted to, and some celery. Some people also add bell peppers, and this is going to be combined with the black-eyed peas as I simmer them. Now this is about ready. I'm just sweating down the leeks and celery. I don't want them to take on too much in the way of color. I'm going to add them to the black-eyed peas along with some pork bone stock, and I'm going to simmer them. They probably won't take that long. Black-eyed peas actually cook pretty quickly, and I don't want them to be all mushy, so it'll probably be under an hour. And with the hoppin john, the next step will be to cook some rice. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cook the rice in the water that the black-eyed peas were cooked in. Some cooks do manage to cook the beans and then add the rice at some point so that when the rice cooks everything's all ready. But it's a lot safer to cook the beans to the state that you want and to cook the rice separately to the state that you want, and then combine them and use the same cooking liquid for both. So now this is the pork belly, celery, leek mixture and the fat added to the black-eyed peas plus some pork bone stock, and I'm going to bring it all to a simmer and just keep tasting periodically. Remember, taste, taste, taste. Not so much for the taste of the broth, but to make sure that the beans don't get mushy. Now my soup stock is about as rich and sort of bacony, porky, hammy. It's, you know, meant to be a bit more smoky than it is with these ingredients, but I'm doing my best. Now I've added the bulk of the vegetables, which are some leeks, usually should be onions, a little bit of garlic, the stalks of pak choy, that's my greens of choice. The leaves are easily cooked, they're very tender, nothing like collards, so I'm going to put them in at the end. But the stalks will take a little longer. And I've chunked up some potato, quite big. This is a chunky soup, and kind of a knife and fork soup if you like. So now I'm just going to cook down the vegetables here for about 20 minutes, and then the final step will be adding the leafy parts of the pak choy. I'm also going to put in a few grinds of black pepper. Meanwhile, the black-eyed peas coming along nicely. I should say 40 minutes will do it for them, and I'll be revisiting every 10 minutes or so just to make sure that everything's on track. They might cook quicker, don't know. I'm actually quite surprised that I can get black-eyed peas here in Cambodia. At one time I had to really search for them, but now I have them in just my regular supermarket. And I've got about a kilo of them because I really like them. And they're especially important at New Year because they represent coins. Greens represent banknotes and black-eyed peas represent coins. So black-eyed peas and pot liquor soup are kind of a dish of hoped for prosperity. So now we have the last step with the pot liquor soup. I've added the greens. I'm going to just simmer them down a little bit, and you can see I've also added a little bit of red pepper. This is actually sambal ulek from Indonesia because I don't have any fresh red peppers. but it all does the same. It needs to be a little bit spicy as well as peppery, and then I'll simmer this down a little bit and then I'll show you the finished product. So here's the final product, ready to go. All I have to do is plate up, and if I had some cornbread I'd eat it with it, but I don't really want to make a whole pone of cornbread. I've got too much food already, so I'll settle for this. And it's actually breakfast time, so it's a good breakfast. I'll show you the plate in a minute. Well, here's the plated up soup ready to eat, and I'm actually quite famished. Normally I'm not in the early morning, but I am today. It looks nothing like North Carolina pot licker soup, but it's the best I can do, and it works. It's got some of the feel of the original. So, an interesting turn of events. I just tasted the black-eyed peas, and they're still a little bit underdone, but I thought, I tell you what, about the time it'll take them to fully cook will be about the time it takes to cook rice. So instead of cooking them through and then draining off the fluid and using it to cook the rice, let me do it the old-fashioned way. Let me cook the rice in with the beans. Alright, so let's see. Don't think it's a horrible mistake. We'll have to double check, but I think it should be alright. The only small danger is that there isn't quite enough cooking liquid to cook the rice. I may have to add a little bit more, or it may turn out to be a little bit soupy, which is okay because I can just drain it. So let's just go back to the old-fashioned way and see what happens. Now I do need to have it boiling a little bit more vigorously like this so that the rice will cook properly. But I'm also going to have to keep an eagle eye on it because I don't want anything to burn or overcook or dry out or any of the many things that could possibly happen. Fingers crossed. And done. Very good. Yeah, a little bit of the liquid left over, but I'm going to take the hoppin john out with a slotted spoon, or I may just sieve the remaining broth away into a container for later. Looks just perfect. Now let's plate up. So I've just put some in a bowl. Normally I would use this as a side dish and would have maybe some fried fish or some other main ingredient, but for New Year's Day this is just about perfect. The saying in the South in general is that you're supposed to eat poor on New Year's Day and then you'll eat rich for the rest of the year. And this is not an especially poor dish. It's got a lot of ingredients in it. A lot of loving care goes into it as well. So I hope you all have a joyous 2021. Hope the pandemic passes over eventually and that we're all able to get back to some semblance of normal. And I meanwhile will ask you to tell your friends about my videos, to like and to subscribe, and I will see you in the new year.